You first. How would you decide? Well, I don't know.
Hey everybody, welcome to Kent with Bent in Lent. I almost said it wrong. I was going to say Kent with Bent number whatever. No, it's Kent with Bent in Lent. Bent, how's Lent treating you?
So far, so good.
So far, so that's pretty good. I like to hear that.
Yeah,
You doing anything besides wearing a tutu for Lent this year?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, it is Lent, and it is the fact that Lent rhymes with Bent, and also with Kent. So that's
mhm.
the main reason that we have this as this name. But I also so I think there's a few things. One is I think it's pretty clear to everyone that I am not here to get you to change your religious affiliation unless your religious affiliation is causing you to do horrible, horrible things. In which case, I actually care more that you stop doing the horrible, horrible things than that you change your religious affiliation. But I actually do think it might be worth talking about why Lent is a thing and why you might not necessarily want to observe Lent, but you might take a few lessons away from it. Because the point of Lent is that it's one of several traditional periods of solemn time in the ecclesiastical calendar of various Christian churches, right? And so the idea is supposed to be that part of the reason that you're fasting is to also focus on things like what you can do better, right? What mistakes have you been making? In what ways have you, say, harmed your neighbor? In what way have you failed to live up to the ideals that you want to live up to? And you know, maybe it's you just don't feel like you have, in which case, I don't know, maybe you're great like that. But I feel like most people have ways in which they feel like they could be doing better at just being a good person, right? Like, I don't think I'm perfect at it. Um, and so I like the idea that every once in a while you set aside some time specifically to contemplate on that thing, right? What is it that I'm not living up to among my own standards, for my own like goals for being a good person? And the idea is supposed to be that the fasting is supposed to help basically remind you to think about those things, because when you're feeling uncomfortable or hungry or just deprived of the foods that you like, it's supposed to prompt you to remember those things. And of course, if it's not doing that, then you're supposed to not, well, in many places you would be better advised that you not bother. And so I think that that's something that we could all take on board, is every once in a while set some time aside to just think, what can I do to improve myself? Where am I failing? Where am I succeeding? You know, I don't know. I just think that that's a pretty decent thing that we could do. And also, I think that the fact that many Christian churches, specifically Protestant churches, have sort of abandoned the idea of having a formal observance of Lent is actually kind of part of the problem, right? Because a lot of evangelical Protestantism, especially in North America, has become very triumphalist and very much not open to examining themselves for their own impersonal like critique, or even just critique on an institutional level. And I think that if they had a season or two where they remembered specifically to think primarily about what they've screwed up, maybe they'd be doing better. I don't know. So there's that. And also, giving this little discussion here gives me an excuse to talk about Lent so that the title of the video is justified, because otherwise it's just a rhyme coupled with a purple altar cloth, which, in case you didn't know, is so there's like each liturgical season has a color. Like ordinary time is green, Lent and various fasting times are purple, really important holidays are gold, things like that. And yeah, so Lent is purple. So if you go into like Anglican, Catholic, and Eastern Orthodox churches, you'll see that the priest is wearing purple vestments and the altar cloth is purple. So that's why we're using a purple altar cloth. Kent, I'm almost positive, doesn't even know what an altar cloth is. Never mind, has any idea as to when you should use what color. Like, yeah. So there's that. But yeah, and also I want to point out that the idea of having a period of like solemn self-reflection is not unique to Christianity. For instance, That's what happens during Yom Kippur. Is supposed to be a day like that in the Jewish calendar, and Ramadan, which is also happening right now, is also supposed to be like that. So also we're having Kent with Bent during Ramadan, but that doesn't rhyme. So not much rhymes with Ramadan. It's not an easy word to rhyme. So yeah. Anyway, I think that's enough talk about Lent. And yeah, actually, I think it was Chesh was like, maybe I should try Lent. I'm like, here, I'll send you the most harsh Lenten rules I can find. And she was like, yeah, I think I'll pass, because it was like, you don't get to eat any meat from any vertebrate the whole time. You also don't get to eat dairy or eggs or anything with olive oil or wine. Except olive oil and wine is flexible on the weekends. Saturday, Sunday, sure, you can have some olive oil and wine as a treat. And she was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do this. I was like, all right, I don't care. But, you know, I'm one of those go big or go home, right? Kind of things. It's like, yeah, you could just avoid meat on Friday if you're a wimp. Anyway, so we're primarily here to continue on with our look at Kent Hovind's Creation Science Evangelism 102. No, 104. Holy crap, we're on 104. We've gone through 3 whole courses of this, and we're almost already like a good way through 104. This is class 6 of 104. This is crazy. Earlier, Kent had told us how there were great arguments on both the heliocentric and the geocentric side. And we were just baffled and dumbfounded and wondering what the good arguments for geocentrism were. And he didn't tell us, but also Jessica Transmetal Alchemist has gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Thank you so much. I'm going to take 5 drinks while Bent tells you what is, in his opinion, the best argument for geocentrism. There we go.
The best argument for geocentrism is imagination.
There you go.
And if you imagine, it can come true.
All right.
So
Now,
dream big, kids.
there you go. So you are wearing a pink tutu around your neck, I suppose.
Yes, I am.
And that is because last time we were here, we hit the pink tutu number, which is basically if Bent is here, and we can get to 100% on this slider here, then Bent will wear a pink tutu on the next Kent with Bent. So, if you want, you could force him to wear one at the end of the month, because we have another Kent with Bent coming up on the last Tuesday of the month. The last thing I want to address before we really get into Kent is to point out that, yes, there was a premiere this around noon my time, or this morning if you're on the Pacific, or early this afternoon if you're on the Eastern Coast. Because I'm an idiot, and I clicked Tuesday instead of Thursday when I was scheduling it. And I was not there, and no one could get a hold of me because I was asleep. Because I got about 3 hours of sleep last night. And so I was up and working at like 5 a.m. after having already tried to go to bed and stay in bed for like an hour and it just not doing anything. So I got up and I started working. And then around, I don't know, like 11 a.m. my time, I just crashed. I went into my room and I went to sleep and I slept for, I don't know, 2.5-ish hours. And I wake up to Maya Edkison messaging me. I'm like, hey, did you miss a premiere? I was like, what? And yeah, so I released a Roger Spur video where Roger is basically blaming everything on bacteria producing and shooting out too much ATP synthase or something. It doesn't make any sense at all because it's Roger from Mud Fossil University. So if you haven't seen that, please check it out so that the algorithm doesn't ding me too much for going off schedule, because that sucks if that happens. Anyway, I suppose the last thing we have to do is the drinking rules. Bent, do you have your list handy?
I do have a list, yes.
All right, well, you already saw that we will take a drink for each of the Dapper Dinosaur gift memberships that are sent in, up until about 30 or so. Once we have 30 in the stack, I'm just going to finish the drink and go get another one. I am currently drinking rum and cola. Bent, what are you drinking?
Baja Blast. Mountain Dew Baja Blast.
Nice. Borg Emporia says, great tentacles in that premiere. Thank you. There were, in fact, tentacles, and they were completely procedural. I literally didn't model a single thing by hand in with those tentacles. They're just a whole bunch of math that turned into tentacles. And yeah, So I can also make them bigger, longer, give them different size suckers, all sorts of stuff. But yeah, all just math, which I think is kind of cool. I don't know. Actually, who was it in the chat asking me about modeling in Blender? I believe it was. Where'd you go? Yes, Final Freak 56. That's another thing. You can do procedural modeling in Blender with geometry nodes, but that is what I would consider to be very advanced. And I would say that you should get a good grasp on like box modeling, sculpting, stuff like that before you try to go into like procedural modeling, because it's very flexible and very powerful. But like I said, it's also very, very complex, and you have to like train your brain to think in nodes, and it's not intuitive at first. Anyway, so the rest of the drinking rules. First of all, we will take a drink whenever Kent Hovind says something that's so stupid we just kind of have to. Next, we will take a drink if Kent Hovind tells a joke that doesn't land or tells a story that didn't happen. Now, that one is a bit of a judgment call, but if he tells a story about how his daughter stumped a museum docent by like asking him how fossils are dated, if fossils are reliant on like index fossils, and how haha therefore I guess your dating of fossils is circular, so the earth might be 6,000 years old, and then that guy's like, oh my god, and he goes to church later that night at the church Kent Hovind is preaching at and gives his life to the Lord Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's a story that probably didn't happen, at least not in the way it was told. So we take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind mentions that political party from the 1930s into the early 40s in Germany that's also becoming very, very popular in the modern day, primarily in the former United States, but also in other places. Hey, if you live in Europe, watch out, because you are where we were like 10 years ago. So don't follow the United States example, because it's not great. Yeah. Anyway, we'll take a drink if Kent Hovind mixes up what we can know about Lucy, the single specimen of Australopithecus afarensis, based on just her bones, with what we can know about any wider taxon to which she belongs, based on multiple specimens. So, for instance, if he says, "Well, we don't know if Lucy could walk upright because we don't have her feet," well, we have other Australopithecus feet, and yeah, she could. Actually, we don't even need her feet to know that, but either way, we call that an ad hominid. We only get one of those per stream, because once it happens once, it usually then just constantly happens. So yeah, let's see. We will also take a drink if either Bent or I can successfully predict what Kent is going to say next. Also, if Kent cites a source, and that source, we check on it, and not only does it not support Kent, but if it actively contradicts him, we take a drink for that. We call that a Trojan source where it actually contradicts your claim. We will also take a drink if anyone super chats or membership milestone chats anything to the effect that answers in Genesis are a bag of dicks, or if you super chat or milestone membership chat anything with a kaiju. So basically, if you're a channel member and you're ever membership milestone chatting or super chatting and you're not making me drink, you're missing out on that one. You should always make me drink on those, because it takes only one emoji, and that's it. So, Bent, Dapper's a professional. If I screw up the production, if I forget to mute someone, if I forget to turn off the opening when we come back from break, if I something like that, right? If it's my fault, it's a production issue. Dapper's a professional. We take a drink. If it's technology's fault, like if my computer crashes, the power goes out, YouTube HQ blows up, something like that, that's not on me. Not Dapper's a professional. So, what am I missing, Bent?
If there's a kaiju monster that comes by audibly.
That's true,
And
yeah.
I don't think you said if Kent gets something right.
Oh, I might not
Then
have.
we'll
Yeah, if
take a
Kent gets
drink.
something factually right, and it's not just him reading off from a quotation, we take a drink for that. And yeah, if Mothra or Godzilla come by audibly, we take a drink. So I think that is it. And also, the poll right now, which has 69 votes, nice, is have you heard of pareidolia? And basically, this is here because not that long ago, like a half an hour ago, I said, well, that's just pareidolia to Bent. And Bent had never heard that word, which
I'd never heard that word before.
Bent is a grown-ass adult human.
Yep.
And has never heard of pareidolia.
I heard of the concept of it, but not the
Yeah,
word.
but not the word. And I find that
Weird.
baffling. Jillian Wren says, is this morning's premiere Dapper's a Professional? I'll allow it. I'll take a drink for Dapper's Professional for that one. Yeah, DM Wing like misscheduling a premiere. It's true. It's true. I still think it's a fun video, and I'm not sad that people are seeing it a few days early. I am a little bit sad, though, that it ruins, like, It shortens how much time everything is in early access because I just already scheduled the next thing for Thursday because we're still having a premiere on Thursday because that's how it works. But yeah, I don't know. Here's Kent.
Less distortion. Okay, a year, if you calculate it out, 365.2422 days in a year.
It's a little bit worrying to me already that we're starting out with Kent not knowing how many days are in a year. But, you know,
For the Earth to go around the Sun and end up back in exactly the same.
Becca Justiniana says, "You say pareidolia frequently. Does Bent listen to you?" Bent?
What'd you say?
Becca Justiniana
Kidding.
said,
Kidding.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Kidding. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, also, we do have a super chat goal. If we can get to $35 or above super chats, I will read from the hilarious phrasebook English as She Has Spoke or A Just and Sober Earnest. We are actually pretty close to being done with that book, so we could get through a lot of it. So, yeah. Also, it's an excuse to not listen to so much Kent Hovind.
Spot is 365.2422. It actually goes beyond that, the fraction, but that's real close.
That's a decimal, Kent, not a fraction. I'm just gonna take a drink for Kent, the former high school math teacher, according to him, not knowing the difference between a decimal and a fraction.
Math is hard.
It is hard. That's true. But he claims to have been a math teacher. You know what? I bet I'm not going to do it because it's like the middle of the night where my dad is. But I bet if I were to call my dad up when he's awake on any given day, given that he's a former math teacher, he could reliably differentiate between a fraction and a decimal. And math is still hard. It's not like it got easier for him than it was for Kent. The same math. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, there are more complete specimens of Spinosaurus than the original thoughts in Kent Hovind, or that Kent Hovind has had. Gosh. Oof. And would you like to guess how many complete specimens of Spinosaurus we have?
One?
No.
I don't know, a lot.
No, it's zero. It's zero. We have none.
Zero?
There are no complete specimens of Spinosaurus.
Oh, I was way off.
Yeah, that's okay. Petite Flower for $5 says, pareidolia is one of my favorite words and concepts, but damn, Roger just takes it to the bad place. He really, really does. It's frankly kind of astounding. I'm actually going to end the poll here because we got 71 votes and we got 82 people, and that's actually a higher ratio than I was expecting of votes to viewers. So we'll see. How many of you have heard of pareidolia before? 94% say yes out of 71 votes, Bent. Because I was like, I'm pretty sure this is a very common thing that people know about. And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, well, let's find out. Because, I mean, I'm also bad at judging what people know. I remember at one point, I think it was early in high school. I just offhandedly mentioned some Hindu deity. And, like, the person I was talking to was like, what? I was like, you know... And I went through like a few of them that I thought were just like people just knew this from like, you know, meeting Hindus and being around in the world as living, paying attention beings. And that's when I realized, oh, what you think is just things that people know, like standard bits of knowledge. No, that's not true. You can't use your own judgment for that. You don't know what people know. Yeah. So I try to remember that and I don't always succeed. It's like, oh yeah, everyone knows about pyruvate, right? Like, no, they don't.
If it was 365.25, it'd be real simple. Every 4 years, you add a day, leap year. But it's...
Oh yeah, I kind of forgot we were talking about calendars, and I still haven't figured out why we're talking about calendars. Like, although I will say, I would expect actually that if there were, if Earth had been planned from the start to have a calendar based on like the sun and the stars and the moon, which is what Genesis says those things are for, I would expect there to be like some nice roundish number of days, period, right? Like 360.00 repeating, right? Just exactly 360 days. That's something like that. I would expect that. And sure, you might say, well, because of the fall, the Earth's spin has been slowing down. It's like, all right, cool. But like, why is it 365 and a quarter and then some? Actually, just slightly less than that. But like, yeah, that doesn't seem like an intelligent design to me. I don't know. But if you were designing a calendar for a new planet you were also designing, would you give it an integer number of days per year?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that before. Maybe.
I would.
0.2422. Well, that messes things up, okay? It works out, every 4 years you add a day, leap year, works out pretty good. But even that doesn't come out quite exactly right.
That's why it's Christmas in Russia, like 2 weeks after it stops being Christmas. Well, 2 weeks after Christmas Day in most other places. Yeah, anyway.
So every 100 years, like the year 2000, if it normally would be a leap year, which 2000 would have been, but it's also divisible by 100, then you don't add a day.
Unless, is it going to give the unless?
That's why there was no February 29th in the year 2000.
Oof, except that there was a February
Whoops.
29th in the year 2000. Take a drink. Because there's an exception to this rule, and it is that if the year is evenly divisible by 400, then there is a leap year. And 2000 was, in fact, one of those years. So, sorry, Kent, there was, in fact, a February 29th in the year 2000. Feels bad, man. Like, for most people, I would just be impressed that you knew the 100-year exception. Right? Like, normally I would just like, oh, hey, most people don't know about that. That's pretty cool. Because for most people, it's either never going to happen in their lifetime or it's going to happen once, and that's it. Right? But for some very few people, it happens that it doesn't happen because of that exception. And that was that year. And like, he's trying to teach people. He is claiming that these courses that he's giving, his 101, 102, 103, 104 series, are being accepted for college credit at certain Bible schools. If any of my professors in any of my actual college courses for which I got credit was this bad, I would be writing to the dean or making some formal complaints about the fact that I am paying. Well, okay, for me, since I was in the Navy, Uncle Sam is paying good money for this course, and it is being clearly taught very, very, very poorly. And I would not be okay with that.
But there was in '96, and there will be in 2004.
Okay, so I guess we know that this was filmed sometime between 2000 and 2004. I always like to try to figure out roughly what year these things were made, because it's not always clear. Because people who upload these, they never actually put the dates on them, or at least I haven't seen them do that. And these are mostly like VHS to digital that people have then uploaded to YouTube variously to just archive these things. So yeah, these aren't easy to find. It's also why the quality is so low on basically all of them. It's why you can hear that whine in the background. Yeah, that's from the VHS tape.
Now Eddie over here, whose birthday is on February 29th, only has a birthday every 4 years, and he didn't get to have one.
Do you think Eddie is going to point out that yes, he did? Because he did.
If I were Eddie, I would.
To contradict the great Kent Hovind or not, that is the question. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, it is a bit of an assumption that Kent's audience possesses the capacity to write to the dean. Yeah, okay, that's fair. That is a good point. I had not thought of that. I also have not updated this counter here to account for the super chat, so I want to say sorry for that and take a drink for Dapper as a professional. So, there we go. I think we're somewhere around just under a tenth of the way to getting Bent free pizza also. Because if we get high enough, Bent gets free pizza.
Yum.
I think it's somewhere around like 90 or 92 or something like that %, but I'm not positive. I haven't checked.
So he's still only 12.
No, that's not how that works. You don't become a year older because you hit your birthday. You get a year older because you lived another year. Which means that every March 1st, people whose birthdays are February 29th, they're a year older. Did they have a birthday? Technically, no. They're still a year older. They don't get to like, they don't have to like not drink until it's been like whatever 21 in the US times 4 is. So what is it, 84? You don't have to wait till you're 84 to drink if your birthday is on February 29th in the United States. Stupid math. Double check me on that math, because I'm just trying to do like...
I think that's right.
Okay, there we go.
But in real human years and people years, he's, what, 52 or something like that, whatever it is. 54. So, and who cares?
I don't think Eddie's going to point out that he did have a birthday. I think he's just going to let that one slide. That's pathetic.
Take 365.2422 days in a year times 24 hours in a day times 60 times 60 seconds, and you can get the number of seconds in a year. But it works out to be 525,948 minutes in a year.
Okay.
A little over 500,000. If that little yellow circle represented
I'm not checking that math, but if you guys want to, please do.
Earth's orbit around the sun, which is 16 light minutes across, and
on average, right? It's the mean diameter, not the actual constant minute-to-minute diameter, because Earth's orbit is, in fact, elliptical. So the actual distance to the sun varies over the course of the year, but, like, whatever. Who cares? It's fine.
a year has 500,000 minutes. There's a big difference between 16 and 500,000.
Yeah?
And if you're measuring this as a trigonometry triangle...
Oh, right. This whole thing was just a weird tangent about using parallax to measure the position of stars because of the distant starlight problem. Oh, man. What a weird way to construct this argument. Like, okay, well, first let me tell you about the calendar and leap years, and then we can get to parallax measurements. Like, we don't need that for parallax measurements. It's fine. We can just know that the Earth's orbit is real big compared to Earth. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $2 says, Kent Math, a year contains 12.3 seconds. That actually would be roughly equivalent to what his math usually tells him. Kent.
You'd really create a problem here. Put two surveyors up on the roof of this building, 16 inches apart, with their telescopes, transits. Have them focus in on a dot 525,000 inches away.
Okay.
That's 8¼ miles. Would you agree that forms a pretty skinny triangle?
Oh, okay, hold up. We gotta do the poll. Okay. Start poll. Would you agree that forms a pretty skinny triangle? Question mark. And then, of course, we'll add in a turtle option. We'll start that poll. I mean, I would agree. I don't know, Bent, do you think that would be a pretty skinny triangle?
If you want me to vote, I'm voting turtle. But
Oh.
otherwise, yes.
Okay. Well, turtle did take an early lead, but we'll see what happens.
Right? Now keep in mind, this illustration is to show you what 1 light year looks like using Earth's orbit around the sun. Not the diameter of the Earth. Earth's orbit.
Right. Yep.
Huge circle is nothing compared to 1 light year.
Right.
See, a light year is a distance.
Is this going to be just big number, therefore science wrong?
It's not a time.
It's a good prediction.
Yeah.
And that confuses a lot of folks. A light year is not a time. It's a distance.
Kent, I think you're the only one who thinks that confuses most people, because that seems to be your excuse for a lot of things. Is just like, well, it might be 3 million light years away, but that's a distance, not a time. Therefore, the light might have gotten to us earlier, not understanding that there's this thing called the distance, or, well, the time travel distance, whatever triangle, right? The time, distance, and velocity, right? Or speed in this case, since it doesn't actually matter your direction if you're just using distance rather than, a vector. So, speed, distance, time, and they all relate to each other. And, like, if 2 of them are constant, the other one has to be 2, right? So if the distance is the same and the speed is the same, then the time has to just be what it is, right? So if the distance is 3 million light years and the speed of light is the speed of light, And the time that it took for that light to get here has to be 3 million years. There aren't other options available to us.
How far does light travel in a year? About 6 trillion miles.
Right, and if something's 3 million times that distance, Ken, what does that mean for the time travel, or the time length, the duration of the travel of the light? How long was that, Kent? Bent, do you know?
I forget what the number was, but trillion years.
Well, it was.
X
I said
trillion
3
years.
million light years, but yeah.
Or million.
See, Bent doesn't listen to me.
There's so many numbers thrown around there. Who can think of them all?
I mean, most of them were 3 million. For $2, Goop23 says it's a distance based on time. Right, it's literally the distance it takes light to go a year. Sorry, the amount of distance that light will go in a year. Yeah, I can't talk. What? How did anyone let me become someone who streams like on a professional level without actually being able to speak English? This is amazing.
Roughly. Well, suppose it was traveling 6 trillion miles an hour.
Okay, but it's traveling at the speed of light, Kent. That's why we call it that. What speed does light travel at? The speed of light. Now, it can slow down in terms of like the overall speed of the wavefront in a medium because the light interacts with the particles, but between interactions, those photons are going at the speed of light. Right? It's the interactions that cause this to slow down a little bit. But if we go with space, where there's going to be more or less no interactions, then it's just the speed of light.
Then it goes a light year in 1 hour.
Right, but it doesn't because the speed of light is constant, Kent. That's why we use it as a constant. In fact, like, it's such a constant that we no longer are able to measure the speed of light. Instead, we measure the length of units of length based on the speed of light. Like, I don't know if you know this, but you can't measure the speed of light. What you can do is measure the length of the meter. That's it. The speed of light is so unchanging and so fundamental and such a huge part of so many parts of physics that we have decided, like physics has decided that it is easier to define the meter based on the speed of light than it is to have a definition for the meter that's based on some physical thing and then base the speed of light on that. The length of the meter is how long it takes light to go, or sorry, how far light goes in some period of time. I don't remember what the exact period is, but like, you know, it's a very short amount of time, obviously.
Right? If I said it's 8 Hovind minutes from here to the store, that's how fast I can run. Okay, I can run there in 8 minutes. That's getting longer every year, by the way. But
hey, Sanguine Sonder has been a member for 17 months at the Tetchpod level, but there wasn't a message with it. So thank you very much, Sanguine Sonder. And if you did have a message, please tag at me. Yeah.
that's not a distance. Well, that's actually a distance. Hovind minute is a distance.
Yeah.
If I speeded it up, it'd be quicker.
Right, but you can't do that with light, Kent, so it doesn't matter. Do you think Kent is going to try to give us a reason to think that the speed of light has varied over time?
I think he might.
He might, yeah.
He might say we can't know what it is or what it was. Only what it is now.
Sanguine Sonder said, I meant that message to read C equals 1 light year per year with Mothra. It sure does equal 1 light year per year. I'll take a drink for that. Oh yeah, Narandaput says light isn't aging. He might do the whole tired light. Have you heard about tired light, Bent? Yeah, it's this creationist idea that sometimes that light just kind of slows down as it goes, or maybe it's, and so that like it used to be going way faster than the speed of light, but now it just gets to us at the speed of light because it's so damn tired. And it's like, wow, that's a fundamental misunderstanding of how all of that works. But sure.
Right? So a light year is the distance light can travel in 525,948 minutes.
Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says the Hovind per minute is the unit of stupid over time. That's true. It is. Yep. But remember, we usually measure in millihovens per second is usually what I do.
Or 1 year. Earth's orbit around the sun is 16 light minutes. A year has 525,000 minutes. That makes an angle out at the point of 0.017 degrees.
Okay, cool. Hey, let's turn this into arc seconds, right? Let's see what that is. So in 1 degree, there are 60 arc minutes. And then there are 60 arc seconds in each arc minute, right? Which means that there are 3,600 arc seconds per degree. Cool. So if we multiply 3,600 by 0.017, we get that it's actually just over an arc second. Is that right there, that triangle, right? That is the angle between the star and the 2 points. Modern astronomy telescopes that are actually used by professional astronomers at observatories have an accuracy that is well below an arc second. So this is trivially easy for them to measure, 0.017 degrees. And I'm pretty sure that where Kent is going to go with this is, well, that's too small to be reliable. Well, it is when your accuracy is like 0.1 arc seconds, and we have 61.2 to work with here. So, yeah, no, that's plenty. We can go many, many times that distance and be very confident in our numbers. Well, let's see what he actually goes with, because I'm pretty sure that's where he's going, but I don't actually know. Oh, and for $5, Lieutenant Math Navigator says, if Hovind was born in the Neolithic, he'd be the tribe Egypt that needs help on which way the pointy end of the spear goes. Yeah, that's probably true. Or he'd just be clubbed to death for being useless. I shouldn't actually say that. We actually have good evidence that the Neolithic age people actually took very good care of people who were like disabled or ill or severely injured, to the extent that they could, right? But like we have skeletons of people with severe pathologies that would not have allowed them to live on their own and like provide calories for themselves in like a Neolithic setting, who lived to fairly advanced age for the time. We're talking like, 30s and 40s. So yeah, in fact, I remember one case, I think it was in like Central Asia, where a Neolithic skeleton was found of I think it was like a woman who died in her like 30s or something. And she had a lot of tooth decay from eating sugary things. So it seems like what was happening is, for decades, she was very well taken care of, and people were bringing her sweet things, presumably because she enjoyed them. And so, I don't know. I think it's heartwarming to know that even in the Neolithic, people weren't just abandoning their friends and family who were disabled, even from birth. And they were like, no, well, we'll take care of you. You're going to be a valued member of the community for as long as we have you. I appreciate that. It gives me a little bit of faith in humanity.
Get your protractor, try to mark off where 1 degree is, and try to mark off 17 thousandths of 1 degree.
Okay, but what if I just had a really big protractor? That might actually make it pretty easy, right? Like, he's relying on you imagining the thing that you had in school, like the little plastic protractor that you put up on your test paper, right? But what if I had a protractor that was like the size of a car? That might actually be not that hard to do. Or what if it was even bigger? What if I was using a gigantic telescope that had like, an aperture at one end that's like 30 meters, and it's like dozens of meters long, and it's set in this very precise gear mechanism that can give me exacting control with like actual electrical motors and very detailed sensors that can tell me with sub-arc second precision where I'm pointing. I think that might enable me to measure way less than 0.017 degrees, because I know we can. Right? Like, this is a problem that's been solved.
I'm talking a real skinny triangle.
That's true. I'll take a drink.
Even if we draw a circle around this whole property and tried to mark off 1.017 degrees, at the outer circumference of a huge circle around this property, it'd still be a real small amount.
Yeah, but not an impractically small amount. It's impressive that we have this level of precision, with our telescopes, right? We do. And just pointing out that it's really, really precise doesn't change that it is in fact that precise, right? Porif says, but such a device does not exist in Dinosaur Adventureland. That's true. As far as I know, Dinosaur Adventureland never had a giant professional astronomy grade telescope.
Even just 1/10 of a degree.
A tenth of a degree is not much. 100th of a degree is even less. Okay. If you want to measure the distance to a star 100 light years away, simply add 2 zeros.
Okay. I'm gonna take a drink. Bent, did you know that the formula for perspective includes an arctangent function?
No, I didn't know that.
Well, you know that that's a trigonometric function, right?
hmm
And one of the things you might know about trigonometric functions is that when you graph them, they're not linear. That's because perspective isn't linear. So if something moves 100 times away from 100 times its distance from you, it doesn't get 100 times smaller. It's a non-linear function. Also, I want to point out that that's even if Kent's math were right, that would be 0.612 arc seconds, which I'm also pretty sure that we have that covered. I'm not as positive, but I'm pretty sure we're down to like the 10th of an arc second on a lot of telescopes. So yeah, we could still reliably measure that. Again, this is one of those things where, like, if it were just anyone, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, hey, you know, we should actually look at this equation because it's not strictly linear because of the trigonometric function and all that. But Kent claims to have been a math teacher, and trigonometry is something math teachers usually have taught. And like the law of perspective is all just about angles, which is why it uses trigonometric functions. And it is very, very worrying to me that Kent doesn't know that trigonometric functions are not just linear, and that you can't just stick some zeros on the end and call it good. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, primitive man treats the injured with dignity and compassion. Kent Hovind, here's some marketing material to my scam compound. Yeah, also, speaking of disabled individuals, I don't know if you know, but Kent has 3 children. He's got his son Eric. He's got his daughter. I don't remember her name now.
Isn't it like Marissa?
I think that is it. It's something with an M. Might be Marissa. I think it is Marissa. If it's not, then I'm sorry, Kent Hovind's daughter. If you ever watch this, please correct me, and I will put a pinned comment or something acknowledging that you gave me your actual name. But he also has another son that we don't hear much about from Kent. Kent Andrew. One of the reasons we don't hear much about Kent Andrew is because Kent Andrew is disabled and was disabled from birth. And Kent basically shuns that kid. Until fairly recently, that was the only one of his kids who was willing to actually have Kent in his life, who wanted a relationship with his father. Kent didn't want that. Kent ignored him. And yeah. I have this story from someone who witnessed the event or the events firsthand after Kent was at Alabama in his current Dinosaur Adventureland. And Kent Andrew visited and spent basically every single moment ignoring Kent Andrew to the point that Kent Andrew left in tears. So yeah, hey, Neolithic cave people, many moral steps above Kent Hovind. Kent Hovind is a piece of shit. Like, this is the man who's like, oh, hey, bring my grandkids to see me, Eric. And then his son, what I believe is his oldest son, comes and he ignores that guy. So, Yeah. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, Ken would be mathematically disabled if he ever had an unfortunate run-in with a table saw. Yeah. I'm sorry. That just made me remember that whole thing, and I don't like it. I really don't like that story. And I don't like having to tell it, but like it's relevant. So yeah, I'm gonna hit play and not think about that more.
Now it's 0.00017 degrees. And here we got guys like Hugh Ross saying we can measure the distance to stars, 17 billion light years away. I'm sorry, I just don't believe that.
Okay.
I'd have to see that. How on earth can you do that?
It's literally a flat Earth argument. I didn't do it. I'd have to do it. How come you didn't go do it? Ben, how come you didn't go measure the parallax to all the stars, huh? You're just reporting what other people tell you. You just believe what the scientists tell you about their measurements. You just believe that?
Yes, I do. It's easier that way,
Jeez.
and it makes more sense, and it's true, and all the evidence supports it.
I'm taking a drink for Kent,
Why
just
not?
full-on flurf mode. I don't believe it. Because why? Because of your incredulity? That's it. That's all you have. It's like, well, I don't think they're that precise. It's like, well, they do. Do you have any reason to think that they're lying to you? They all get the same answers when they check within a margin of error. A margin of error that's consistent with them having that degree of precision in their measurements. It just, oh. Look, every once in a while, Will Duffy pays attention to this channel. It's not often, but he's been here before. So, Will, if you're here, hello. Now, when you started out your thing with Erica, you said that you didn't like it that people compared flat earthers and young earth creationists. And I get why, right? But also, if you're watching this, do you see why I would compare young earth creationists to flat earthers? Because Kent is just doing a flat earth argument. This is just the absurdly high standard of evidence for everything that contradicts his claim, paired with his earlier low levels of confidence. Like, remember, this is a man who thought that Carl Baugh's idea of fiber optic liquid metal hydrogen ice canopies seemed perfectly fine to him. On the basis of what? Just Carl Baugh pulling shit directly out of his ass. That's it. That's all it is. But now here's Kent coming along with scientific measurements with actual error analysis and repeated confirmations of the measurement. I don't know. I don't believe that. What am I supposed to do with that? How do I not say that is basically just the flat Earth? Where they'll be like, oh, well, Eric Dubé once said we could see a lighthouse from too far. That seems good to me. Oh, you made a careful measurement with actual surveying equipment across a lake that showed that the drop from the horizontal tangent matched the predictions of the globe? I don't know. I wasn't there. Really? You weren't there, huh? You weren't there for Eric Dubé's nonsense either. He won't even tell you which mountain it was or which lighthouse it was. So you just believe that? Yeah, Kent is just doing that. Let's see. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, I don't believe it. Man that thinks the legal system works on incantations. Yeah, there's another thing. Kent is in fact a sovereign citizen. He doesn't like to call himself that because I think he knows just how silly it is. But yeah, let's remember, years after this, like a decade after this and more, Kent Hovind would sue his son Eric in sovereign citizen court. Something that his son would just ignore because sovereign citizen court doesn't have any jurisdiction over you unless you decide to consent to that jurisdiction, which you can just not do. And really the only reason to do it would be if you think that the court is going to give you a fair hearing, and also you want to avoid an actual legal battle in real court. At that point, it's just arbitration, and arbitration is fine. You can do it. There are many companies that specialize in arbitration because court is long and slow and expensive. And arbitration is also expensive, but it's often faster, and sometimes it's even less expensive. So people do that. But Kent seemed to think that would actually compel a response. And no, it wouldn't. And the only reason that people actually opt to do arbitration is either one, they sign an arbitration clause, which are in most of the EULAs you've ever signed. So check those. Or two, they just agree to it because they know that if it went to court, they would have to abide by that, and it would be even more onerous. But in this case, it wouldn't have to go to court because everything Eric did was legal. Because Kent was foolish enough to put everything his ministry owned, which was everything that was his because he transferred it there as a tax shelter, to the control of Eric Hovind, the son he'd abused for decades. And so Eric Hovind immediately transferred everything out of the Kent's ministry's name and into his ministry's name, down to Kent Hovind's personal stationery. And I am not exaggerating. And then Kent was all surprised when then later his wife divorced him. He was forced to pay rent to live in what had previously been his marital home and was then evicted. Oh no, Kent, maybe you shouldn't have spent decades abusing your children. Admittedly. You admitted to repeated abuse of your children, and you wonder why they don't want anything to do with you. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, we really think Kent has a robust understanding of consent. No, I don't think he does. I don't know. Look, I've never heard anyone accuse him of assault or, that grape thing without the G, thanks you two. But I doubt that he has much of an idea of what consent is.
And all of this is generously assuming you know where you were 6 months ago. Isn't it?
Wait, hold on. Kent, do you think that that's not something we can do, that we don't know where the planet was 6 months ago? Oh, right, because he thinks there are good arguments for geocentrism. Oh my god. That's where this was going. What if instead it's geocentrism and there is no triangle? Oh, God. Oh, I'm taking a drink. That is amazing. Also, it is a confirmed prediction. He was going where I was expecting him to. Also, if this weren't so old, I would think that those Earths were made by AI, because what is going on with those continents? I know that on the left for B, we're trying to do like North America and South America, but then what's over there on the southeast? Is that Australia? And if so, where did Africa and Europe go? And then on the bottom right with A, I have no idea what's happening. But, okay, cool. Merrill Earth Science 1993? I don't know. Get your shit together and just draw an Earth. It's not that hard to do. Oh man, I forgot that geocentrism was probably going to play in. My god.
I mean, if we got two surveyors on the roof 16 inches apart, they can see each other. They can see each other and, measure the distance between their telescopes, How do you know exactly where you were 6 months ago?
No.
Kent, I don't follow a fixed elliptical orbit every 6 months. So I don't know exactly where I was exactly 6 months ago. Although my guess is probably right here in this chair, because it would have been Kent with bent time roughly. But anyway, the Earth follows a path. In order to say where was it 6 months ago, we don't know. You would have to produce something that would make Earth's orbit variable enough to the point that this would introduce an error in our measurements of stellar parallax big enough to basically give us an unacceptable level of error that would allow for us to just basically not know how close the stars are. But that would have to be an extreme variation. What would cause such a thing? What makes you think such a thing would happen? We measure that based on things like distance to the sun, which we can directly measure with things like bouncing radar off of it, radio waves, basically. We can do things like measure the distance and relative locations of all the planets relative to the Earth and see that nothing unexpected is happening. Like, you can right now go download a program that will accurately tell you where all the planets are and will be and were for thousands of years before and after the present. Right now, for very little money, you can spend like $10 or something and get some software that will do that for you. Does Kent think that's bullshit? Because again, we're getting into flurf territory here. Kent Hovind is basically a flurf in every way, except technically he believes in the globe. But like, when it comes to, he might as well be saying NASA lies and space is fake, right? Like, at this point, he might as well be doing that.
Do you think they really try to use that to tell a distance? Or do you
Yes.
think they just...
No, I mean, he is right. They absolutely use stellar parallax out to... How far out does stellar parallax go? Is it a few thousand light years? It's not super far. Like, we're not using it for other galaxies or anything.
Well, it's not 15 billion light years, which is what Kent said.
Right. They're definitely not doing that. That's using standard candles and redshift. which if he glosses over, we'll talk about it a little bit.
They really do try.
What they do, first you get the distance to a close object like the moon.
You can't use Earth's orbital this distance for parallax measurements to the moon, Kent, because the moon travels with the Earth. So it wouldn't matter where you. I'm gonna take another drink.
He really doesn't know how any of this works.
How can you get this so badly wrong? I don't
know. You have to try hard to get it wrong. This wrong.
Honestly, yeah. Like I think if I were trying to make up a misunderstanding of stellar parallax, it wouldn't be this bad. Fits of Rage 23, who's been a member for 27 months and is at the diapsid level, that's the highest level of membership, says if Kent had access to Dubé videos during his formative years, or even a while after that, he would absolutely have become a flurf. Or sorry, he absolutely would have been a flurf currently. Yeah, no, I think that is absolutely true. Also, then there are 5 disgusting pelagic tunicate emojis, but there's also an AIG's a bag of dick emojis, and all 3 of the good kaiju emojis, so I'll take a drink. Then, Nani Numbers sent 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. So let's add those 5 while Bent tries to count to 5 in Spanish.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My accent's really bad. I know.
Yeah, you said cuatro like you were trying to speak Spanish with a French accent or something. Like I'm not sure what just happened. You were like cuatro.
I don't know.
I was like,
I don't know.
That's a choice. But then Lieutenant Math Navigator just gifted 5 more, so we'll take 5 more drinks. Thank you so much. Let's see. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. All right. Let's hit play. We'll get a little bit more in. Then we'll take a quick break, and I will refresh this drink because I am almost out. I have almost finished my very tall, somewhat stiff rum and cola.
That can probably be done just with 2 observation points on Earth.
Yeah, Kent, it can. Which makes me wonder why you're bringing it up in a discussion about stellar parallax. Also, we have retro or reflectors on the moon. We just shine laser beams at it now. It's much more precise. Maddie from Science Side Up, who's on Matt with Maddie, who's also in my Star Trek Adventures game over on Top Hats Off, she has personally fired laser beams at the reflectors left by the Apollo missions on the moon to measure the exact distance from where she was to those, reflectors. That's a thing she has done personally.
Very nice.
Yeah, I think she had one Flat Earth debate, and I think it was with Dathan Thompson, and she actually brought up that, yes, she had actually shot those lasers. And he was just like, no, you haven't. I'm like, okay, sure. Also, my God, of all the people to introduce as a Flat Earth debate opponent for your first Flat Earth debate, Nathan Thompson has to be one of the most annoying. Not one of the most difficult to deal with. He's incredibly stupid like they all are, but what a piece of garbage that guy is. He and Austin Whitsitt, like I've said before, I mix those two up because they're both basically the same guy. They're both weird, skinny flat earthers who look like they haven't showered in 4 months and who are just unrepentant assholes about everything in their lives, and who are also people who had videos of them abusing their intimate partners just go up online. So that's fun. I don't know what it is, but pseudoscience tends to attract awful people, like just absolute pieces of shit. Or just people who like to swim in shit, like RFK Jr., who famously swam in raw sewage with his grandchildren. Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah. Noramdiputz for $2 says, fire the lasers, destroy the reflectors. I don't think they're powerful enough for lasers. I bet we could actually figure out how powerful would a laser have to be fired from Earth to the reflectors on the moon to destroy them. That would be a fun exercise. Yeah, I would wonder how many gigawatts of laser power would you need to fire a laser that could destroy the reflectors on the moon.
They keep refining that distance. Then they use a phenomenon called parallax. If you hold your thumb out, let's say your thumb is...
We've been talking about parallax this whole time. Why are you describing it now? What is happening? Get this whole
Did he
thing.
forget?
I
think he forgot.
To remind himself what parallax is. And also, when you said you could get it from 2 different points on Earth to the moon, that is parallax, Kent. Oh my god. How did I ever take this man seriously? I was gonna say, how did anyone, but how did I do it?
That's a good question.
I don't know if I was ever this dumb. I mean, sure. Like,
Well, you were young and naive, but
yeah, I guess.
not dumb.
3 feet from your eyeball. And your eyes are 4 inches apart from each other, center to center. If you hold your right eye open and look past your thumb to... Try it. Look at the side. Line your thumb up with the right side of the screen.
Is he going into detail about the open one eye and then the other thing that everyone who's like older than like 4 has done and noticed that it changes the apparent position of things? Is he really going into depth with this?
I think so. And I don't know why.
I think it's because he thinks that his audience are even bigger morons than he is. Because, as we've seen, very few people have more disdain for the ability of their audiences than professional young Earth creationists. If you want to find someone who thinks that the average young Earth creationist is just a completely brain-dead moron, like, it's going to be creationist speakers. That's who thinks that. I don't think that. I think most of them are just misled and ignorant of facts. But creationist speakers seem to think that all of their audience are just the stupidest people.
And then switch to your left eye.
Yep, that's what he's doing.
You see it move back and forth, right? That's called parallax. Now, if you knew the distance between your eyeballs and the distance to your thumb, you could calculate a further distance out by using that parallax. So that we calculate the distance to the moon, then let's use the moon to calculate the distance to the sun.
No. Can't we circle around the sun? You can't use parallax to measure the distance to that on its own. What do you... Oh my god. I'm taking a drink and we're taking a break. I can't. I need to stop this for a second. Dude, oh my god. Kent, we worked this out by using things like the distance between things like Earth and Venus at different points, which we can calculate, and then like looking at how big of an ellipse that makes, and then how big that would have to make Earth, and use other planets to help figure all these things out, and then we can figure a distance. But nowadays, we can just bounce radio waves off the sun, they come back, and we just measure how long it took, divide that into, use the speed of light as your conversion factor, and boom, you know how far away the sun is. And none of it needs parallax. I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna get a new drink, and in the meantime, we're gonna get musical stylings from some guy named Ben Hovind, who sometimes wears a tutu. And yeah, we'll be back. Bye. we are back. Welcome back. Thank you for sticking with me. Those of you who did, which looks like it was almost everyone. So thank you. Yeah. Let's see. I feel like I missed a $2 super chat somewhere. Oh, no, I didn't. I just forgot to add it in on the total. So that's a Dapper's a professional there. Let's fix that. I'll take a drink. Actually, I'll stir my drink first because I forgot to do that. And I think if I just take a drink without stirring it, it'll just be rum. There we go. Okay. So thank you everyone for all the support. This is the mid-stream commercial break, if you will. This channel is in fact supported almost entirely by direct support from viewers, whether it be from Patreon, channel memberships, super chats, super stickers, gifting memberships, stuff like that. And so, you know, as you guys know, I spend a lot of time, 5 days a week, sometimes more, working on this channel, right? Sometimes I only work 8 hours, but it's usually more. There are definitely days when I spend 12, 14 hours a day researching, scripting, animating, recording, stuff like that. Even just finding new videos for these shows. And I can only do that because so many of you have opted to help me financially. If you are currently enjoying what I do here and you're not helping financially, but you can afford to, and you want to, then please check out the Patreon. It's probably the best place to support me. I get to keep the most of the money. It isn't dependent on the fickle whims of YouTube. They can't just shut that down just because they think that me saying, "Hey, you should follow the vaccine schedule provided by your doctor." They sometimes will say, "Oh, that's misinformation. We're going to shut you down." They did that once. Patreon's not going to do that to me. So that is where I would say that is the best place. There's also the channel memberships that has the advantage of giving you a cool channel badge. Your name turns green in chat. Gives you access to channel emojis, and also there's a few videos that are actually only available to channel members. So it's all behind the scenes type stuff. There's no like actual videos that I keep behind a paywall that are like my normal content. So like you can go watch a goblin try to read a Dapper Dinosaur sketch, or sorry, what is it? Script. That's the word. Yeah, if you ever wanted to see what happens when a goblin tries to read a script written by a dinosaur about evolutionary biology, you can go do that. Both the Discord and the channel memberships give you access to my Discord server that's just for supporters. We're going to be watching Star Trek later on today. We're going to be watching Star Trek Enterprise episode 1 and 2, technically, Broken Bow. I got a subscription to Paramount Plus specifically because we're watching Star Trek. I plan to cancel it afterwards. But just to help me so I don't have to go hunt it down somewhere, I got the subscription. So yeah, there's that. They also give you early access to my scripted videos. There should be one coming out here in the next few days. I'm planning to actually record audio tonight for a new video. So yeah, and usually you have like 4 to 5 months worth of early access on videos. So I think it's a pretty good deal. On Patreon, you can also get a 15% discount if you pledge annually. I had someone join at the $5 level, but they pledged annually. So they paid a bit under $50, and now they have a year worth of the $5 membership access and benefits and whatnot. So please check those out. And yeah, also there is Sheepit. Sheepit is the render farm I use to get my videos done. It basically, if I didn't use a render farm, it would take me well over a month to render out just the animation for any one of my videos. As it is, it usually only takes a couple days. And so I'm currently rendering my own frames on Sheepit right now. And the way Sheepit works is there's a section in my description called how to render for me. You go down there. There's a link for how to get the client. You download the client that works for your operating system. Use the login credentials that are listed in that section. That will give the points that you earn to me. And that will set a higher priority for my frames. Or if I'm currently rendering, you will be able to help me render frames directly, assuming your computer can handle my frames, which some computers can't. That's okay. So yeah, there's that. And let's see. Xenomorph says, "Are you quitting early, Dapper?" I hadn't planned to quit early. I'm not sure what you mean. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna hit play because I think that covers everything. Oh yeah, there's merch too. The merch is mostly just like it's cool to have, and I'd make very, very, very little money on it. I think in the last 4 years I've made under $100 on merch. So like, I just appreciate it when people send me pictures of them like wearing a Dapper Dinosaur T-shirt or wrapped up in a Dapper Dinosaur fleece blanket, or like drinking out of a Dapper Dinosaur mug or something. I think that's really cool. So yeah, check that out. Anyway, here we go.
Then let's keep doing all this and cross-checking everything, and you get, most textbooks will say you get with parallax trigonometry you can measure distances of less than 100 light years.
Sure, I don't really care to dispute that. I'll just accept that. I don't know why it matters what the exact number is. It also has nothing to do with how we know how far away the sun and the moon are, but okay. Oh, Borg Report says he means you started early, the time zones, I think. Oh, that's a good point. Right. So, in case you guys don't know, I live in Arizona, which doesn't change our times, and Bent is here for a 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time show. So, because Bent lives in Arizona, I default to that. I also live in Arizona, because I don't know if you know this, but we live in the same house. That's a thing. And so, yeah, this show is a little early compared to my other shows, but the clock change is happening this Sunday, which means that for the next, 9 months or something? 8 months, I think? Yeah, I think it's 8 months. All the shows will be at the normal time, including this one.
I think it's probably much less than 100.
Okay, do you have a reason for this, Kent? Do you have any statistical analysis? Did you notice a variance in the measurements between different studies that exceeds the reported error margins? Is it just, nah, that ain't it, bro? Is that it? Is that all you have? Why, Kent? You can't just say, I don't believe it. If you want people to believe that the measurements that are made by scientists are wrong, you have to show why they're wrong. You have to show your work. What led you to that conclusion other than just, you don't like it? You think he's going to give us any of this? You think he's going to tell us the statistical analyses? Yeah, no, of course not.
Okay, but I'll give him 100.
Okay,
I'll give them 500 if they quit crying. The fact is, you can't measure 10 billion.
Not with parallax. No, that's why no one does that. So there is a limit. So let's say we accept the 100 light year limit for parallax measurement, which I don't particularly care what the actual number is, right? But then we use something else. This is called standard candles. So a standard candle is an object with a known intrinsic luminosity. Bunch of big words. So let's dive into that. So let's say you have a 500 watt incandescent light bulb, right? While it's on its operating life, the amount of light it's shedding is going to be pretty constant over time. Which means that if you know how bright that light bulb is at, say, a distance of 2 meters, right? So you use like something that measures brightness, a candelometer, if you will, and say, okay, that's the distance, that's how bright it is at 10 meters. You can then use the inverse square law to figure out that it will be 4 times dimmer if you are at 20 meters, right? Because it uses the square of the distance, not the distance. It's a logarithmic function, not a linear one. Which means that if you know the intrinsic brightness of any object, and you can measure its apparent brightness or luminosity, you can calculate the distance. Okay, so are there objects in the universe that have known intrinsic brightnesses that do not vary as far as we can tell? Yes. Some of the big ones are, type 2 supernova? Is it type 1 or type 2 supernovae?
I think it's type 1A. I don't remember for sure.
It's the kind of supernova that occurs when too much mass accretes onto a neutron star, and it would take it over the Chandrasekhar limit, and then it blows off all that excess mass as a supernova of a particular size, because it's always the same amount of extra mass, basically. So we know what the intrinsic brightness of that is. There's also Cepheid variable stars that vary in their intrinsic brightnesses, but always between known values. And Cepheid variables are used less often than supernovae are now, because, well, supernovae are abundant enough across the universe, and I think they're just more reliable. I'm not exactly sure why Cepheids aren't used so much anymore. But since we can measure some of them within parallax distance, and they always have a consistent brightness based on that distance using the inverse square law, we can use them as what's called a standard candle. So if you can look at one of these supernovae and say a distant galaxy and say, okay, how bright is it? Well, now you know how far away it is. For even greater distances, what we can do is use what's called redshift. So just like when a car screams by you on the road and it starts getting high pitched, and then the pitch gets like a mid-tone as it passes, bright as it passes you, and it lowers down as it recedes, that's called the Doppler effect. Basically, as something comes towards you, if it's emitting waves, those waves shorten in wavelength. As it moves past you, they lengthen in wavelength. So, for light, shorter wavelength means bluer, longer wavelength means redder. And it just happens to be the case that very reliably, distant objects have redshift, means they're receding from us, at known rates that correlate with the distance. Which means that if redshift is consistent across standard candle objects, that means that if you have an object which has no standard candle in it, but it has a known redshift, you can use the redshift to measure the distance. Now, at certain points, the idea of like units of length, like light years or miles or whatever, gets kind of iffy because of relativity, and we just report distances in redshift. So if you look at like the some of the new stuff that's coming out of the what's that new telescope, Bent? It was delayed forever.
Vera Rubin?
I was thinking the James Webb.
Oh.
Yeah, the James.
Yeah, that's a little bit older.
Yeah. The James Webb is frequently reporting galaxies sighted at distances that just redshifts are reported, right? So that's how we go past parallax. So Kent is right that parallax can't get us very far in the scale of the universe, but that's fine. We have other things. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, well, I think the result of Kent Hovind's IQ test was negative. Yeah, sure does feel like it, huh? I like to think that means he just makes rooms dumber by sucking the IQ out of other people. They have to pay the deficit to the universe when he walks into a room.
Even though Congress does not seem to understand, there's a difference between 100 and 10 billion.
There's a joke that didn't land. Ha ha ha, Congress spends a lot of money. Not money that Kent is paying them, mind you.
Right?
Like that he laughs at his own joke, and everyone is just dead silent. No one cares.
A big difference. So, I just don't believe people when they say you can measure a star distance, 10 billion light years away.
Okay, cool. You can, and Kent saying I don't believe it doesn't actually refute that. It's nothing. It doesn't mean a damn thing.
They have other methods of trying to measure that distance, like redshift is the primary one.
I'm going to take a drink. Good job. That's not the primary one. Standard candles are actually more important for many distances, but whatever. Especially at distances where actually sometimes there are blue shifts. Like Andromeda, the galaxy, is blue shifted because it's currently moving towards the Milky Way, and it will collide with the Milky Way in a few billion years. So, yeah.
Which we'll get into in a minute. But you just don't know those distances.
I mean, you do though, right? Like, what would it take for standard candles to be wrong? Well, either the inverse square law would have to be wrong, which, I mean, Flat Earth Ozzy Jesus tried to tell me it was wrong. He didn't do a good job of it, but like he tried. Good luck with that, Kent, if you want to argue that. Or we would just have to be wrong that these intrinsic brightnesses are steady, in which case you would just go look at measurements of the apparent luminosity of these objects and see if it ever is within another distance measurement that we have, right? Like redshift or parallax, and see if they fall outside the range of our margins of error. In which case, that would be a valid hypothesis as to why, is because they don't actually have a fixed intrinsic luminosity. You think Kent did that analysis?
No, of course not.
No, you don't think he's sitting around doing meta-analyses of Cepheid variable and supernova observations?
But other, better, smarter people are.
Yeah, that's true. And they're actually coming up with, yes, these are things that are actually of constant luminosity. Cool. Well, intrinsic luminosity. You know what I mean.
Somebody says, that star is 10 billion light years away. Yeah, right. How'd you measure that?
For 10 billion, that's going to be redshift. Kent? Yep. Ray El Gatubella for $2 says, Russell Humphreys has invented B-Sing star hadn't invented B-Sing star distance yet. I don't know. Oh, BSing. God, what is wrong with me? Hadn't invented BSing star distance yet. Why? I'm just gonna take a dapper as a professional drink. That was bad. I'm sorry, Ray El Gatubella. My bad. I swear, English is my first language, you guys. It's not Klingon. You know what? I was reminded recently that the Weird Al song, White and Nerdy, has the speaker of the song saying that he's fluent in JavaScript as well as Klingon. And I just appreciate that. Although he never actually uses Klingon, which I think is a missed opportunity.
Was it a Stanley, a Lufkin, or a Craftsman tape measure? And who held the other end?
Okay. Do you know how many flurfs have said that who measure the curvature with a tape measure as if that's a thing you could do and as if that's how we measure all lengths? Kent, stop being a flurf. You don't have to be a flurf. Most
He's
young
so
Earth
good at
creations
it.
aren't. Yeah, that's true. Oh, and I guess technically he's not a flurf, but like, geez. We should have a separate counter for how many times Kent just goes full flurf with his arguments. Oh, we got some bingos coming in. Nice. Actually, I'm seeing quite a few bingos. All right. Who am I seeing? We got Jillian Wren. We got Jillian Wren just repeating bingo. But also we got Heather Kuhn, which also, it looks like Heather Kuhn's membership has lapsed. I think we should try to get Heather Kuhn a membership again. Rail got to Bella for $2 says, Klingon is more linguist nerdy than Trekkie nerdy. Is it? I don't know. I mean, I guess it's subjective, right? Like, I can't say exactly which one it is, but I feel like it's more Trekkie nerdy because, like, you don't actually have to know much about linguistics to learn Klingon, or any language for that matter. You just have to know just what grammatical functions that language is using and well enough to use them. But then again, maybe knowing that difference between that and knowing about linguistics broadly is something only a linguistics nerd would do. I don't know.
That's what I want to know, right? Let me meet this guy. And who made that tape measure anyway? You just can't do that.
Skeptics and Scoundrels for $5 says, the man who performed 45 9,500 withdrawals to avoid paying taxes is complaining about Congress's math? Interesting. He sure is, and he sure did. And then, when it was carefully explained to him why that was structuring, he just refused to believe it. So, yeah. And look, you can make the argument that that law is like iffy on like privacy grounds, and you know what? I don't necessarily disagree with you. But it was still is a law. Ken Hovind definitely broke it, and he was definitely doing it to avoid paying taxes.
So, you cannot measure distances beyond 100 light years. Now, people
With parallax.
will get upset with this and say, yes, you can. I don't.
Right, because you can. You just don't use parallax. Oh, wait. Have you noticed that some stars are brighter than others? Early astronomers use a system to indicate the brightness or apparent magnitude of stars. The system is based on a scale of from 1 to 6. The bright stars were called first magnitude stars. I feel like this whole thing is cut off so that we don't get the description of standard candles, because I feel like, given that they're starting with parallax up at the top paragraph, and then we're going to magnitude in the third paragraph, that what they're doing is they're going to go on to talk about standard candles here in this this textbook. Kent, you wouldn't be cutting off the textbook exactly as it's about to explain why you're wrong, would you? I mean, that would seem dishonest. That would seem like...
He would never.
Yeah, like that would seem to indicate that he knows what the textbook has to say about this, and he's just ignoring standard candles because that would be too convenient for the evolutionists, even though nothing about this has anything to do with evolution. Huh. Weird. It's almost like Kent is a lying asshole. Let's see. Would you agree that's a pretty skinny triangle? Turtle 57%, Then yes, 37% with no, only at 6% with 95 votes. Wow, that's a lot of votes. A lot of you guys really, really wanted to vote for turtle.
Don't believe you. Okay, if you think you can, I don't believe you. You'd have to prove it to me. I taught trigonometry. Explain it to me carefully.
Well, it's not trigonometry. It's the inverse square law, which does have a geometrical like concept built into it, which is that, you know, if you double, say, the radius of a sphere, you quadruple its surface area. That's what's kind of going on there. But like, yeah, it's not trigonometry. It's the inverse square law.
And I've had people give me snow jobs. When I taught school.
What do you say?
He said snow jobs.
Okay, that's I don't know what that is, but it's not what I thought he said. So, okay. Wow, I thought this was going in a very different direction for a second there. A direction I don't really want to talk about when it comes to Kent, because I know more about that than I ever wanted to.
For 15 years. When you ask kids a question and they haven't done their homework, and
Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, well, Kent is a 2-bit con man without adjusting for inflation. So what is he now, like a $5 con man after you account for inflation?
they don't know what they're talking about, they probably will give a huge, long answer to the question.
I guess it depends on how old they are. Very small kids, I find, usually just don't answer, or they say something very short but stupid. Because
Or they say, I don't know.
Yeah, they say, I don't know.
It's called the snow job, right?
Okay, yeah, he's definitely saying snow job. That's good. That's good. I'm happy with that. I called it shotgunning because it was like you were blasting an answer with a shotgun with, like, you know, like birdshot onto the paper when you're writing in a test or something. But like, whatever, it's fine. You can have a different idiom.
How many know what I'm talking about? You did that yourself, Eric. You did that, I'm sure, yeah.
Hey, do you remember that time that he went into a whole thing about what parallax is in the middle of his discussion about parallax after he'd already talked about what parallax is, and how he went on and on about things like distance to the moon and the sun that are completely irrelevant? I feel like that might count as what Kent would call a snow job.
Very much so.
Yeah. It's almost like, as DM Wing has pointed out in the chat, projection, because it's just a bunch of projector emojis. And there's Jillian with yet another bingo for the projector. All right, I'm gonna... Oh, Rail got to Bella for $2 says, snow job sounds like a euphemism for pierced ears. And what is that emoji? Or no, that's not pierced ears, that's a fish hook. Fishers? Hooker? Oh, hookers and blow, that's where we're going. Got it. Hookers and blow. Got it. It's a hook. Got it. Got it. I thought it was an earring because I'm an idiot. Why do people listen to me?
To learn.
Clearly not about emojis, though.
Yeah, I guess not.
Hookers and blow. Got it. That's actually really good. I like that. Thank you. Okay.
So when a kid writes a 20-page answer to an essay question, you can rest assured he doesn't have a clue what he's talking about.
I mean, that's going to depend on the question. There are definitely questions that are worth 20 pages of essay answer. I don't know.
He's trying to snow you, right? And a lot of these
I really, really wish he would use a different term for this. So every time he says it, I'm like, it rhymes. It rhymes.
It does.
Evolutionists will just flat try to snow you with their long answer. And you just got to watch for that. You just can't
doesn't
measure.
Understand.
Yeah.
So he calls them big word answers, long, drawn-out answers. But that's just the way things are, Kent.
Ladies and gentlemen, what he just did is give you a
Yeah, I've done that in the debates. I say, you remind me of one of my students, you know. Used to talk, which just to hide the fact they didn't have a clue what they're talking about. Secondly, no one knows what light is.
I do. It's electromagnetic radiation. It comes in photons. It has a wavelength, and like, sure, if you keep asking, yeah, but what's that? Eventually I'll get to a point where I don't have a good answer for you. But that's true for literally everything. So, like, I know what light is to the same degree that I know what anything else is, right? Like, sure, at a certain point, I'll stop being able to answer questions about, well, what's that made of or whatever. But that's just being a human or a dinosaur or just a thinking thing in the universe. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $2 says, Kent can count to 20? Well, I'm not sure you can actually count, like, starting from 1 and get to 20 in a smooth, like, each integer goes up by 1. But he knows the word 20.
And we don't know that it's always traveled the same speed. I mean,
we actually do. So here's the thing, right? The speed of light isn't just the speed at which light travels. It is a physical constant that has effects all over physics, right? It would, if the speed of light changed, it would change chemistry. It would change what the emission spectra of various elements are. It would change all sorts of stuff, not just the speed of light. So if the speed of light had varied to any significant degree, we could tell by things like just the stellar spectra from distant objects, right? It would be different. We could tell based on the chemistry around us if there had been a difference in the speed of light, because it would be different. But it's not. Right? So who cares? The speed of light can't have been different, or we would be looking at a universe that does not look like the one we see. So yeah, that's it. That's all it takes. The universe looks the way it looks, and it looks like a universe in which the speed of light has been constant throughout the entire history of that universe. So it has been. And if you want to challenge that, you're going to have to show your predictions for what would happen if the speed of light were different to things like various other constants that we use in physics and how that would cause differences, and then show that we see those differences. But we already know that we don't. Josh Wiggies for $5 says, apparently Kent isn't a fan of the song Talk Talk by the band Talk Talk from the album Talk Talk. That is a lot of Talk Talk. Bent, have you ever had a band that made a song in an album that was the same name for both the song and the album and the band?
No.
Huh.
I haven't.
Maybe you should.
Maybe, or maybe not.
I think you should. Rail got $2 for $2 says, if Kent can count to 20, I can count to Graham's number. No, you can't. Actually, I watched someone who I don't know if you've ever heard of what is it? Oh, Magnus Opum or Opus. Yeah, Magnum Opus. There we go. Which is a game that you can get on Steam, and it's sort of an automation puzzle game with an alchemy theme. And this guy made a puzzle. He was trying to maximize how long the puzzle would take to solve, and he had to make 6 of whatever the product was. And so he made a puzzle that would be solved in something that was like Graham's number, like I think it was like tetrated to Graham's number or something, number of moves. Like, you couldn't actually perform the function, your computer would break. But if his math was correct, then yeah, it would take this puzzle would be solved in a finite amount of time. But it was just like more time than the universe had left until heat death by a lot. So yeah, and that was pretty interesting. Graham's number's real big. You can't write it normally.
Very big.
Yeah.
Right now, something is hitting me and bouncing off of me, going into the camera and going out to you so your eye can pick up a vibration and translate it into a picture. What is it?
Photons. That's what it is.
And why does this show up one color and this show up a different color?
Because the shirt reflects a broad spectrum, or well, it absorbs and re-emits a broad spectrum of photons. Because basically, the way it works is the photon hits something and is absorbed, and then it's re-emitted. But when it hits something, which is usually an electron, they can only absorb quantized amounts of energy. And if the photon doesn't actually line up with the quantized levels at which the electrons can exist and then drop back down to, then it tends not to actually be re-emitted. It tends to just not actually add that energy to the electron, because that's how quantum physics works. And it turns out that your shirt is made of molecules that have a bunch of atoms that have electrons in a whole bunch of different configurations, which can absorb and emit a very wide range of photons. And when you see photons of basically every wavelength that your eyes can detect, your brain interprets that as white. other bits of Kent's outfit, like the greenish blue on the ocean-looking thing on his tie, is made up of pigments that have a smaller number of potential configurations for the electrons and the atoms and all the molecules, which means that only certain wavelengths of light tend to be re-emitted when light hits it, which your eyes interpret as a different color. These are things that have explanations, Kent. Explanations we knew about in like 2002 or whenever you actually made this, because we know it's sometime between 2000 and 2004. This wasn't a mystery at that time. This was something we figured out like 100 years ago. So, yeah, I'm going to take a drink for Kent not knowing how color works.
You know, what is light anyway? Give me a jar of it, paint it red, and weigh it for me.
Well, it's made of photons, which aren't generally something that you can keep in a jar or that you could paint, because you can only paint matter because it requires things like, you know, electrical forces between the matter in order for the paint to adhere and not simply just fall through things. And light isn't that. Light actually doesn't interact with magnetic fields and things like that. So you can't paint it red, but you can measure individual photons on a photoplate. That's a thing that people do fairly routinely as a physics experiment. So, I'm sorry that not everything can be held in a jar, Kent, but that isn't the standard by which we decide whether things are real or not. There's no such thing as the jar test to see whether something is real. In fact, I would push back and say, hey, Kent, give me a jar of God and paint him red. Would you then say that because you can't, that's good reason to reject the existence of God? My guess is he would say no. Because if there's one thing Kent believes, it's that God exists. And yet, I don't think Kent could give me a jar of God.
We don't know what it is. We know what it does, and we use it, obviously, but we don't know what it is, the basic fundamental thing.
It's a photon. It's still a photon. Do you think Kent doesn't believe in photons?
He's telling me right now that he doesn't believe in or understand photons.
Okay, I'm going to take a drink for Kent rejecting photons. Wing says, is he a light mythicist? No, I think he's just a photon mythicist. I think he's still like, oh no, light is just waves. No particulate aspect to light at all. Which maybe makes him like a photoelectric effect mythicist. Which is weird, because that's how things like the automatic doors at the grocery store work. And like, I'm pretty sure he's been to grocery stores. So, I don't know. That's also how like the automatic stopper on your garage door, that's like, oh no, there's something in the way, I should just not close and chop it in half. That also works based on the photoelectric effect. Yeah. Rail got you Bella for $2 says, Jars of God is my favorite Christian rock band. Oh, thank you very much. Oops. That was a mistake. Take a Dapper's a professional drink right there. All right, here we go.
The idea behind a black hole is that light can be attracted by gravity.
Which we know is a thing ever since like the 1910s with, I think it was Eddington, who measured the shift in the position of stars during a solar eclipse that was identical to the amount of shift predicted by Einstein's equations from special relativity. And also, we've directly imaged gravitic lensing in distant galaxies, where we have things like Einstein crosses and Einstein rings, where galaxies in the background have the light lensed around a massive galaxy in the foreground, and then we see different perspectives or even a ring of light from that galaxy. This isn't a thing that's a question anymore. We've seen it. And since this video, we've also directly imaged black holes. At least 2 of them that I know of.
If light can be attracted by gravity, then the speed of light cannot be a constant.
How does
That makes
work?
no sense.
If light can follow a local geodesic through space, why would that make its speed through that geodesic change?
Magic.
It's not that... Oh, I get it. Kent realizes that when you go straight away from, say, like the Earth, you get pulled back, right? And so that slows you down. And he doesn't realize how that works in terms of special relativity with, like, you know, the actual manifold of space-time being locally flat and locally flat and globally curved, and how light is actually just following the globally curved path of space-time at the speed of light, but because it curves, it can be attracted to things, and why that's not the same as what matter is doing in terms of, like, actual speed. And okay, I'm just gonna take a drink. Yep. I mean, it's not surprising that someone doesn't understand what, like, a 4-dimensional manifold is, because, like, can you really conceptualize that? No, but you can do the math. But also, you would think that if you're going to criticize special relativity, which is what he's doing, you might want to actually know the basic idea. Oh, Sulu says, be louder, please. Okay. I will try to be a little bit louder. Let me see what I can do. Yeah. So, like I said, it's not terribly surprising that someone wouldn't know what that is. But again, if you're going to try to contradict it, you should know what it means. And the reason light can't escape from a black hole isn't because it gets slowed down. It's because beyond the event horizon, the curvature of space-time in that region always curves towards the singularity, which means there is no direction that is out. All directions are towards the singularity. The singularity becomes a point in the future that is inescapable. After some finite amount of time from the perspective of the thing beyond the event horizon, you will reach the singularity. Period. And that is when your geodesic ends. It terminates there. Time stops for you. There is nothing after. Sulu says that I'm half the volume of both Kent and Bent, but I'm looking at the actual numbers, and that is not even remotely true. So I'm not sure what's going on. But if anyone else is finding that I am significantly quieter than everyone else, please let me know. Because I'm currently, actually I was before, close to peaking on several occasions. All right, here we go. Oh, train time.
The theory behind a black hole is very simple. In order to escape from the Earth, to take off from Earth, you have to get going about 18 or 20,000 miles an hour, or you're going to fall back. If you go less than 18 or 20,000 miles an hour, 25,000 miles an hour, you're going to go, we might go up real high, but you're going to come back down. You can't escape Earth's gravity without going that speed. Suppose Earth had stronger gravity.
Okay, this is actually not something that Kent is talking about, but I want to point it out here. You do not need to hit escape velocity to go to the moon. And I hear a lot of people, even people who aren't like moon landing deniers or something, say this. Escape velocity is the velocity you need to achieve given a certain distance from a gravitational field to never fall back and to continue increasing your distance forever if you were to assume there are no other gravity wells, right? So escape velocity would get you going off into the distant universe from Earth. It is not the speed that you need to go to get to the moon, because the moon isn't infinitely far away from the Earth. You only need to reach the orbital velocity that would get you to where the moon's orbit is, and then you have to time it right so that you intercept the moon when you're that far away. So I'm not saying anyone in chat is doing this, but I have seen a number of people who I would generally consider to be smart people, even some science communicators, say that you need to hit escape velocity to go to the moon. Please stop. That is not how that works. Please don't do that anymore.
And you got to go faster to get away, right? The moon has much less gravity, so they had a lower escape velocity.
That's true. We'll take a drink.
If the moon were the same size as the Earth, and we sent a rocket up there and wanted them to come back, they'd have to bring as much fuel with them to get off there as they did to get off here.
Wait, hold on. Did he say that right? I
No,
think I lost
he didn't,
track.
but I think I know what he's trying to say.
Right, it takes way more fuel to get from Earth to the moon than from moon to the Earth. Is that what he's trying to go for?
Well, he said if the Earth or the moon was the same size of the Earth, you'd need the same amount of fuel to get from the Earth to the moon and then back. But you wouldn't.
I'm just going to hit play. I'm not going to try to think about it too much. It's fine.
Can't do that. So the ideas of putting colonies on Mars and colonies on Venus, I think, are highly unlikely.
I mean, I agree, but I don't know if it's because it would just take too much fuel. I think we could muster the fuel. I don't think fuel is going to be the limiting factor on that one. I don't know. I think that just the livability is more important, right? Think about this. It would be many, many, many times harder to set up a colony on Antarctica that is going to be a self-sufficient colony that doesn't require constant supplies. Because, there are colonies, quote unquote, in Antarctica, but they all require constant shipments of supplies. But Antarctica is far more hospitable than any other planet or other body in the solar system. By just so much, right? The radiation isn't lethal. You can breathe the air, and the temperatures are only sometimes lethal. Whereas that's not true basically for any other body. I guess sometimes the temperatures are non-lethal on Mars and the moon and in certain places on Venus. But still, for the most part, most of the temperatures are going to kill you. And yet no one can do that, right? Go do it. If you think that you can set up a colony on Mars, go do it in Antarctica first. You can't. So that's why I think it's going to be a problem. But could we shove enough material to Mars? Sure. If we had the money. It's not like we're running out of rocket fuel.
Because of this problem, they're much more dense than the moon and have a much higher escape velocity.
Mars and Venus are not really much more dense than the moon. They don't have the same density, and they might actually be a little bit denser, but it doesn't really matter what the density is. It matters what the surface gravity is, right? And that can vary for numerous reasons, right? It could just be that the body is smaller but the same density, therefore it's lower. Or it could be the body's the same volume but a lower density, in which case gravity is again lower. No, gravity does not just correlate to density. You also have to figure out how big the planet or moon is in order to figure out the gravity. So I'm just going to take a drink for Kent also not knowing how gravity works. But you remember the Newtonian formula for the force of the gravity, right?
Not off the top of my head.
Fg equals...
No.
G times mass 1 plus mass 2 over r squared.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. So the symbol in physics for density is rho. It's a Greek letter that kind of looks like a P. In Fg equals G over times m1 plus m2 over r squared, where does rho come in?
I don't think it's there.
Yep. Yeah, there's no rho. Pseudoscientists, just learn some basic equations. I'm not asking you to learn tensor calculus or anything, but know the stuff that Newton came up with in terms of physical laws and formulae. Yeah, it would go a really long way.
Jupiter, I forget the numbers now, 318 rings a bell times greater gravity on Jupiter.
The problem with coming up with a gravity for Jupiter is where do you count the surface? Because I don't know. At some distance it's going to be less than Earth's surface gravity. Does that count as a surface? Yeah, probably not. So yeah, I don't know what to do with Jupiter. What would it mean to land and take off from Jupiter? I'm not sure.
So if you landed on the moon, you would weigh 1/6 as much. If you landed on Jupiter, you would weigh 300 times more than you weigh right now.
Could our bodies handle that?
No. Most of your bones, like your knees, can handle, I think it's 17 times your body weight. So when you jump off of a step ladder and land, the bounce is,
About 5 or 6 times more.
yeah, you get up to about 17 times more and something's going to break.
I have no idea where he's getting that number for, but it is true that you have finite compressive strength in your joints. So, sure, okay, That's fine. I'm not going to nitpick the number there.
You know, if you throw a cat off a 10-story building, he will land on his feet, but he'll walk like a duck for a long time afterwards.
I'm actually not positive. So the thing is that air resistance is a big thing. And at a certain size, your air resistance becomes so significant compared to the force of gravity that your terminal velocity, which is the velocity at which air resistance and the force of gravity even out, and so you don't accelerate anymore, becomes low enough that you can survive a fall from an indefinite height. I don't think that's true for cats, but it is for many animals. Like, you can drop a mouse off of the Empire State Building or the Burj Khalifa if you want to. It'll be fine. It will probably be pretty stressed out and confused, but like, it won't break. Mice are basically immune to fall damage because of how small they are and how much air resistance they have with, you know, their fur and their size versus their mass and everything. I meant surface area versus their mass, but yeah. Yeah, so like, I don't know. Also, Kent does seem like the kind of guy who would just drop a cat off of a tall building to see what happened because he's a
He really
cruel
would.
asshole, yeah.
They just can't, the bones can only handle a certain amount of pressure. So if you got off the, you know, even on the way into Jupiter, you couldn't have a soft landing for one thing, because it'd be sucking you in so hard, you know, you'd...
Dutch tuning official says, cats get hurt from falling, but broadly speaking, they're going to survive most falls, including from 5 stories. Thank you. Annoying Newsletters for $2 says, Kent is using Abacadabra's number with the Ghidorah. He sure is using Abacadabra's number. That's true. Way more useful for pseudoscientists than things like Avogadro's number. Yep.
Flat in Jupiter. And then if you could land and get out of your spacecraft, you'd lay there and couldn't even lift your hand to scratch your nose. I mean, your hand would weigh 300 times more than it weighs right now. Because, so, suppose you had so much mass in one place that the escape velocity was the speed of light.
Okay.
Then light can't escape.
Sure.
To get off the Earth, you have to go 7 miles per second.
Do they get going around the Earth?
Slingshot them out. They use this. They use the slingshot effect to get to the moon when they were going to go out to the outer planets. They would use the gravity of one planet to suck them in, and just try to miss it, and slingshot out.
Generally, that's not used to get to the moon, but to get to other bodies in the solar system outside of the Earth-Moon system, yes. And in fact, sometimes this gravity assist is used with the Earth. Basically, what ends up happening is you trade some of the angular momentum of the Earth to add it to your spacecraft or whatever other body, right? You can do these maneuvers around any body of sufficient mass. And so the Earth loses a little bit of angular momentum, which actually does slightly lower its orbit. And then it raises the orbit of whatever craft. But of course, because the craft is so small and of such low mass compared to the Earth, the amount of change in Earth's angular momentum is practically zero. Like, you couldn't measure the difference. Whereas the change to the spacecraft's angular momentum is very, very large. And so that is a thing that can happen. But it's not like you just are near the planet and therefore use slingshot. Like, you actually have to do math and whatnot. And if you're in an orbit around the body that's not hyperbolic, you can't generally just trade angular momentum, because where else is it going to go? It's going to stay within that system. So, whereas if you have a parabolic orbit, which is to say you're not actually orbiting, you're just being affected by that gravity, then because you can take that energy out of that system, you can actually meaningfully make this trade. So, yeah, I don't know exactly what Kent is trying to say with that, so he might not be getting it wrong. He might just not be explaining a whole lot. But yeah, orbital mechanics are weird. I don't know. Play more Kerbal Space Program, everybody.
You know, snap the whip kind of thing. Use that planet's gravity, because you don't want to bring all that fuel for that whole journey. And it whips them on out. They got to do a lot of calculating before they go.
I mean, that is true. NASA flight planners do a lot of work calculating. So we'll take a drink. And also, I want to say cheers to all of the primarily women and often women of color who worked on all of these flight planning projects, doing the math by hand with slide rules before NASA actually had calculation power that was like electronic, that was sufficient to the task. Because those really are some of the unsung heroes of the early space program. Were the mostly women, often women of color, who were, with very little pay, sitting there and just doing endless math to do these calculations by hand. I would not want to do any of those calculations by hand. That sounds like a nightmare.
Miss it, miss it. Oh,
Oops, splat. I'll get another rocket ready, fellas.
that's 3 or 4.
So yeah, is that a 3 or a 4? So the theory behind black holes is that if you get enough mass in one spot, light can't escape. Problem is then you can't see it.
Okay.
So how do you know there's a black hole there?
Well, you check for things like gravity lensing and accretion disks and things like that, Kent. That's how. Like, Kent, there are answers to every single fucking one of the questions that you have asked tonight. You could just go look it up. Just get off your ass, or you know what? Stay on your ass and check the internet. Google it. All of these questions have had pretty easy to find answers. At no point has Kent asked a question tonight that physicists are like, well, I don't know. That's a good point. Oh, we don't know how to find a black hole, I guess. Oh, they're black. We never thought about that. How would you see it if it's black? No one has ever not had the answer to that, Kent. It is astounding to me the degree to which someone will take all these questions about science and then not check. And again, it's what flat earthers do. I was once on a call. It was just me and that Israeli flurf guy who hangs out with Mikey Smith. And he was like, well, how come there have never been north to south circumnavigations? And I was like, here's a list of 5. He was like, well, I didn't know about that. And my next question was, why didn't you check? Why did you start saying there hadn't been any without checking? Because if you had checked once, you would have found that it's happened many times. Not as many times as east to west circumnavigation, I'll grant you that, because that's a lot easier. But why didn't you check? And he didn't have an answer for me. It's the same question I have to ask of Kent. Kent, why didn't you check? You have gone your entire life with these alleged questions that you think don't have answers, but that do. And you have debated numerous PhDs in different fields. Did you ever ask them? And if they gave you answers, did you then just say, nah, I don't think so? Or did you look into it to see why that's an answer that people are giving? Joshua Geese for $5 says, now I'm hearing the song Let It Whip in my head. And then for another 5, Joshua Geese says, plus 7x to all the math/calculations done by hand. Absolutely incredible. Yeah, no, it's the fact that there were actually human beings sitting there and doing all that math is still crazy to me. Yeah. The job of an actual human calculator, a literal actual job title. There have been people in history whose job was calculator because they were the person who calculated. Yeah. And the degree to which that's not seen as or wasn't seen as a prestigious profession is crazy to me. That's so much work, and so much of it is highly skilled work. And then people were just ignoring the fact that these people even exist.
Oh, because it's dark. Oh, I see. That proves it. Duh, that doesn't prove a thing, okay?
Yeah, Kent, no one says that there are black holes in a spot because there's no light there. Gravitational lensing, accretion disks, things like that, radiation jets, all of these are things that are associated with black holes. And while granted, they're not the black hole itself, it's like the wind. How do you know there's wind? Well, you can feel it and you can see the swaying of leaves and tree branches and power lines and whatnot. That's how you know the wind is there. The fact that you can't see the wind itself doesn't matter. You don't need to know it's there.
There might be black holes. I don't know. Nobody knows.
Yes, Kent, we do know. I'm taking it.
Nobody knows.
Maybe they don't exist. I don't know. We have pictures of them, though. And of course, yes, it's not actually a picture of the black hole per se. It's a picture of the accretion disk that was predicted to be there based on our theoretical understanding of black holes.
It's a theory, a very reasonable theory. They could exist, but it is
It's suck all matter in eventually.
within a certain distance. It'd be like a vacuum cleaner. It's much stronger as you get close to the hole, but
No. Okay. Black holes have a finite amount of gravity, like gravitational attraction, at a given distance, right? So for most distances from a black hole, it's just going to act like any other massive object, which means you can orbit it indefinitely. It's not going to suck you in, right? It's a matter of your velocity and the direction you're going versus the orbital velocity at that distance for the black hole. Further, because things that fall into a black hole tend to go really, really fast, when they hit other things, that tends to cause a lot of friction, which means that they develop accretion disks, which are very, very, very hot. And that heat actually puts outward pressure on things falling towards the black hole, which limits the rate at which matter can go into the black hole, which means that black holes have a maximum amount of matter that they can suck in regardless of how heavy they are. Because for any given black hole of a particular mass, given a particular size accretion disk, that will limit the rate at which mass can fall in. So no, black holes are not vacuum cleaners that are going to suck up all matter. That's actually one of the easier parts of black holes to understand, is like the strength of gravity at different distances. Like, it's not that crazy past the event horizon. Now, there's also a certain area called the photosphere at which the strength of the gravity is equal to the speed of light, and so only photons that are traveling at along a line defined by the normal of the photosphere can escape. And if you're anywhere near there, you're not going to be able to have a stable orbit, right? So there's a place between where stable orbits are easy and the event horizon where you can't stably orbit, and you're going to fall into the black hole, although when you are going to do that is going to depend on your exact velocity. But outside of that region, perfectly normal orbits are happy to exist. Or sometimes orbits with extreme amounts of precession as a result of like shear forces from the gravity, but like whatever. We're not going that far into it. But yeah, you can just orbit a black hole indefinitely. It's fine.
Further away, you have less suction.
It wouldn't have any effect.
Right. So the speed of light may or may not be a constant. Let's take a little break. After the break, we'll finish talking about the speed of light and starlight and get into Cepheid variables and redshift.
Okay, well that's for next time because we're actually already over a little bit. So, I don't know if Kent is worse at physics than he is at biology, but he's certainly not better at physics than he is at biology. I'm going to
Pretty
take
bad.
one last Kent is an idiot drink here. Yeah, that was really, really bad. All right, so, Bent, do you have anything coming up that you want to tell people about?
No, I don't.
All right, well, I sure do. So let's see. On Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, there is going to be Creationist Lies About Diamonds and Coal, 5 Reasons That Creationists Are Idiots, Part 1. So I think that's Don Batten? I'm not, I think it is. Hold on. Yeah, that looks like Don Batten. Anyway, so yeah, that's going to be there. So let's see. That's going to be a 55-minute video. So, you know, Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, how does this man figure out which hole to put his toothbrush in? I don't think it matters for him because his head is so far up his ass that there's no difference. It's all the same hole. So then on Friday, the plan is Star Trek Adventures. We're going to do Star Trek Endurance over on top, hats off. We didn't do it last week because of the multiple things that are going wrong over on over FTFE's way, and I decided that it would probably be a kinder move to just take that off, let him deal with various things like Google giving him the runaround on thousands of dollars worth of money, stuff like that. You know, health problems for his family, stuff. So yeah, we didn't play. We did do an art stream. It was a lot of fun, but the plan is to play this week. I'm going to be double checking with them. So that should be at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Then we're going to do on Saturday. I've got a brand new video to react to. We're going to have, I believe, Kip and Vishanti should both be there. Vishanti recently moved, so she wasn't there last week because she was still setting up her like computer and internet and all that stuff. But as far as I know, that is set up now. So I'm expecting her to be able to be there for that Saturday. And then on next Tuesday, we're doing Tisdall Tuesday with Chesh. So check that out. And yeah, if you have access to my Discord server, I'm going to be heading over there and starting up Broken Bow. That's episodes 1 and 2 of Enterprise, which was not called Star Trek Enterprise at first because I guess the execs were cowards. So yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful, safe rest of your week. Have a great night if you can't join us, or even if you can. I mean, I hope you have a great night watching Star Trek if that's what you're going to do. But last and certainly not least, ICE must be abolished. Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Sealoof, Bent Hovind, Tapioca Weasel, Michał Dominiak, Sphincter of Doom, Regios, Landon Knoll, Ian Chen, Eleron Teller, Phil Rivara, Kelvin Brostock Van Manen, David Hercules, Joshua Geese, Dan Sheedy, Pegajace, The Plastic Mouse, Arrow Dodger, Gordon Loves Science, Amber Athelian, Prixie Purple, Agricola Sequa, Me, Myself, and I, Fits of Rage 23, Edwin M., Kenneth Swanson, and John Ackerman. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 15% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.